I love the first Sundays in May. We have, for many years now, had somewhat of a tradition of pausing and talking about abundance. And so I get to do a two-part series about abundance starting today, and I love to talk about abundance. Now, firstly, I want to define what I mean and what we mean when we're talking about abundance. It means to have and be able to welcome into our life any good that we seek to experience. Yes, of course, abundance might include our financial abundance, and it also includes opportunities, it includes care and support, it includes abundant health and well-being, it includes an abundance of time. Whatever it is that we find ourselves yearning to have more of in our lives and feeling like we might not have enough of that, that would indicate that we've got an issue of abundance that we need to take a look at. And so when we talk about this concept, it includes all of that, for sure. And a lot of it is about financial resources and financial good. We're love to talk about that too. I really enjoy this series and enjoy speaking about abundance because of the broad definition and because I happen to be one of those ministers, strange ministers, who loves to talk about abundance. And the reason I love to talk about it is that I have a big vision. I have a big vision for a planet where everybody has plenty of all that they need and want. Yeah, don't we have a big vision of that, right? I believe that's absolutely possible. And I absolutely believe that the only thing that stands in our way of that has to do with agreements that we've all made about the systems of delivery points for the good that we all seek that keep people limited and keep people without the good that they would like to have. And I also think a huge part of that issue, as well as what's going on in our own personal lives, has all to do with consciousness. It has all to do with belief systems and things that we've accepted for years and said are okay about our life and the life we share on this planet that just aren't okay. Because there are plenty of resources on this planet. There's plenty of time to do all that you or I might like to do in a lifetime. There's plenty of love on this planet for us to interact with people and to have relationships with, friendships and partnerships. There's plenty of opportunities to express our dreams and live all sorts of ways that we would like to live. And there's plenty of money, plenty of food, plenty of houses. It's all a matter of being willing to shift from the inside out so that we can do what we need to do to care for ourselves and to create an abundant life, and do what we need to do to care for each other so that everyone experiences an abundant life. And so this is a conversation about consciousness. So my title today is Rich Spirit, Poor Consciousness. Now, I came to that title because I borrowed it from Robert Kiyosaki. Some of you might have read the book. I know I did. I read it and enjoyed it very much. Robert Kiyosaki's book about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This was a book that he wrote in the early 2000s, where he shared about growing up in Hawaii. He had a biological father who had all sorts of belief systems and cultural ideas about life, and essentially struggled in his world of form to have all that he wanted and needed to provide an abundant life for him and his family. And then Robert also had a best friend that he hung out with a lot, whose father was actually very abundant in every way, shape, and form. And so Robert noticed that as he reflected back on the lessons that these two men both taught him, on the things that they showed him about how they lived and the choices that they made, that he could contrast the rich dad and the poor dad and the poor dad and the rich dad, and brought forth these lessons in this book. And so what I'm inviting us to look at today is rich spirit, meaning that we have all been born into a profound, rich heritage that we have not claimed. And I know we haven't claimed it, because if we had claimed it, we would have no complaints about there being enough time, money, energy, opportunity, or love. Because with that heritage comes the awareness that all that I could ever need or want is available to me. I am not being kept from it for any reason whatsoever. Poor consciousness is an indication in my title that the only thing that can keep us from that is when we persist in having belief systems and ideas about ourself and life that are based on poverty and lack and limitation. Rich spirit, poor consciousness. My definitions of abundance have often come from some of the greatest teachers as I've studied abundance, and I want to share two of my favorite quotes as we step into this exploration together. The first comes from Eric Butterworth, who wrote Spiritual Economics. Yes, we tend to believe that economics dictates our abundance, but Butterworth suggested that it is this consciousness, this spiritual consciousness, that has all to do with the economics of our life. When he says prosperity is not just having things, it's the consciousness that attracts the things. Prosperity is a way of living and thinking and not just having money or things. Poverty is a way of living and thinking and not just a lack of money or things. And from the founder of our teaching, Ernest Holmes, aka today Yoda. When we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well. We must learn to come under that divine government and accept the fact that nature's table is ever filled. Never was there a cosmic famine. Never was there a cosmic famine. I'm inviting us to start this series today asking ourselves what thoughts, ideas, belief systems, some might say BS, is in the way of us and the abundance that we seek to experience in any realm of our life. What's keeping us from our good? We may have all sorts of stories about the government, my ex-spouse, the economy, the job market, the market, blah, blah. Yeah, we may have some of those. Those are facts that we don't believe in not acknowledging. And yet, no matter what the facts are, we know that throughout history, transcendent of the facts, transcendent of the economy, transcendent of how they were raised, transcendent of what someone told them, there are certain people who have stepped into profound abundance in all of the areas that I'm talking about. What's the difference between them and us? Nothing other than belief systems, other than consciousness. At the core of us, our divine heritage is wholeness and love and abundance and peace and joy. Every being on the planet shares that heritage. But we have to claim it. It's like there's some, I love those stories of those articles that come out about unclaimed money and look on this list and see if your name is on the list so you can claim this money that's been sitting in a bank account you didn't even know you had. That's how most of us are spiritually. Our name is on God's list and we haven't yet claimed it. And when we claim it, when we choose to claim our divine heritage, everything changes. Ernest Holmes tells us also in the Science of Mind is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Neither does it promise something for nothing. It does, however, promise the one who will comply with its teachings that they shall be able to bring greater possibilities and happier conditions into their experience. That's what we're here to do today. And to do that, we have to accept, firstly, that we are heirs to goodness and abundance. We are heirs to the kingdom of heaven. We are heirs to the richness that we desire. that as far as the universe is concerned, you may have as much as you like. And you can take as much as you like, knowing you can never take from someone else. Just because you take plenty of good in your life doesn't mean that someone over there isn't going to have any good. It's like that thing our parents would tell us, well, clean your plate because there are children starving in whatever country it was. Almost as if I don't eat it, then somehow it's going to affect them. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Just in case someone didn't tell you that, I don't know if, And for us to claim our good, for us to claim our divine heritage, for us to claim that we belong in the kingdom of heaven and that God accepts us and adores us and is here to give itself to us unconditionally and completely so that we may utilize the energy of this presence and create the life that we would like to create, that nothing is keeping us from that except us. We have to claim, I'm an heir to the kingdom of heaven. I'm an heir to goodness and abundance. This is who I am. And it requires us then to do the holy sacred work of letting go of that which obfuscates that. Clouds of belief and clouds of ideas that we might have been brought into through our culture, our family system, through what people told us, through our experiences of the past. Beliefs like, well, I had my heart broken, so that must mean I'm not worthy of love. Beliefs like, my business failed, so that must mean I'm not worthy of having financial abundance. Beliefs like, I can't quite feel it when I go inside and try to meditate in prayer, so that must be the reason that I don't belong to God. I'm not special like one of those priests or goddesses or ministers or Buddha or Jesus. I'm not special like them. That's not true. And they all said it's not true. All of those teachers, every single one of them said over and over again, this I do, you shall do, and even greater things. Not a single one of them has ever tried to convince us that we were unworthy. The big, powerful teachers and prophets of the ages, constantly calling human beings to their divine heritage. And we are doing that today also. Come back to your divine heritage. Remember the truth of who you are. Let go of all of that no longer serves. It took me a while in my personal life to do a lot of that work, and I'm still about it in many respects. And yet, it is that holy, sacred work of being willing to say, I believe this, I came to believe this because I was told this or I was shown this, and I don't think that's true, and I've got to let it go, and I've got to surrender it up, and I might have to forgive, and I might have to reclaim myself in a different way. And so I began by working when I first came here to Mile High Church with practitioners and did workshops and classes and took the practitioner training and the ministerial training and all of that just began to and consistently cause those clouds of doubt to just be let go of so that I could see more clearly and more profoundly the inherent truth of my wholeness, of my worthiness. And what I've noticed for myself and every other being I've ever worked with is as their sense of their inherent worth goes up, their attraction for more and more good increases. Because a huge part of what's keeping us from having the good we want, the love we want, the time we want, the dreams we want, the financial abundance we want, is there's some little part of us that just doesn't believe we're quite worthy of it. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not lovable enough. You're not pretty enough or handsome enough. Whatever your enough is, that voice that whispers and tells us that we're not enough. That voice is the voice that we must deal with. Not angrily pushing it to the side or trying to beat it up or whack it down, but rather to look straight at it and be willing to do the work, to surrender it. And one of the most profound places that I did a huge amount of surrendering is when I signed up and attended the Inner Child Journey. The first time I went into the Inner Child Journey, I just paid my money and showed up as one of the ministers of this church. And people there were like, you're just attending this workshop? And I'm like, yeah, I need this workshop. And then after that, I was so impacted by the power of that inner work, how it transformed me. And just like it said in the announcements, it's kind of intense, and it changes people's lives forever. Transforms. Because there's a returning to that true presence within us that knows that it knows that it knows who it is. And it begins to give us an opportunity to operate and live from that place versus from the wounded child that has been running the show possibly for a long time. And then I was given an opportunity to join the team and be on the staff. And then I was given an opportunity to participate as a leader. And now I'm very proud to get to do this holy, sacred work with my beloved friend and colleague, Dr. Raz Smith, who's here today, as well as Steve and Laura Drury, a couple of our wonderful practitioners, and a whole team of people. And once a year, we come together and we make a space and we say, y'all come, who's ready? Who's ready to claim their divine wholeness? Who's ready to step back into the true nature of who they are? And more importantly, who's ready to let go of and heal that little voice inside that's always telling us that we're not good enough? And so if you're ready, I encourage you to join us for the Inner Child Journey. It's going to happen on May 16th and 17th. It's a Friday night, all day Saturday. It's a powerful experience. I've got scholarships. Come see me. If that little voice is telling you, oh, we don't have enough money in our budget. Yeah, not even that excuse wins today. Oh, sorry, I'm shining my watch in people's face. I apologize. So join us for that because it made a difference, as well as all of the other holy ways that we can heal. The bottom line is that a huge part of getting to this truth of who we are is to let go of all of that superfluous stuff that we've been believing up until now. I will say it for the rest of my life, that this holy work is worth it. It is the power of us and who we can be and the abundance that we can live in every single day of our life and reclaim our divine heritage. And the implications of doing this are huge. I've already pointed to them. The opportunity to live in a state of greater truth, to live and become a magnet for that good, to live from that state of holy worthiness. It's not a blustering, it's not an arrogance, it's a beautiful state of living in the truth of our spiritual magnificence and our magnificence as a being, our uniqueness as a being of love and light. Jesus talked about this when he shared one of his parables. I always loved that Jesus taught in parables when I got to read the Gospels. And one of the parables where he talks about abundance that often confuses people, because one of the things that definitely confuses us is that we may have believed that we just weren't good enough for God. We may have been told messages that we are not spiritual, magnificent beings, and so we may have to heal that message. And this parable of Jesus invites us to heal that message by remembering a deeper truth. He says in the parable, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. I don't know about you, but I would read that and go, what the hell is he saying? I don't understand that parable. And I'm sure if he were alive today, he'd be saying, good. Think about it. And that's the thing about the parables and the Gospels and all of the stories of the Judeo-Christian Bible and all of the holy texts. We get to understand them and evolve our understanding. So I have danced with that parable for a really long time, especially as a teacher of abundance, going, what did he mean by that? Easier for a camel to pass through, what? So I've done a lot of reading about it, and this is my understanding today, and I say today because it'll probably evolve over the years. What I have taken today as we look at this issue of our inherent worth, and in fact, I do want to change the title of this talk now that I'm thinking about it. I said it was rich spirit, poor consciousness. I really think it should be rich spirit, rich consciousness, don't you? Yeah. Mark up there in the booth, can you change it, please? Rich spirit, rich consciousness. Thank you, darling. I appreciate that so much. That's what we're going with, okay? Because this is a parable about rich consciousness. It's not rich like he talks about a rich man. He does talk about a rich man, but the rich man in the parable, I think, symbolizes the part of us that thinks our worth is only equal to what we have in the world of form. And that our ego state thinks, well, if I have enough money, if I have a house, if I have a great job, if I have a partner, if I have lived out my dreams, if I've done everything I've said, if I've seen the world, whatever your definition or my definition is. And while none of that is bad, what happens is that when we let ourselves become obsessed about that and believe this is our only way that we can express our worth, we fall into that ego state of a rich person, thinking I'm rich. I need to be rich. And so when he says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye, because a camel back then was one of the biggest mammals the people of that time knew of. A big camel that represents the cultural, contextual, big, gigantic animal getting through the needle's eye and represents a massive weight or burden that can happen when we fall prey to thinking that our worth is tied to what's in the world of form. And so then the eye of the needle is an extremely small opening that symbolizes the narrow gateway to higher consciousness and the inner truth in the realm of spirit. So when we just did that beautiful mudra prayer with Zamira and we put our hands to our heart, this is the portal into our true love, our true value, our true contribution, the love that we are, the love that we give. That is our spiritual inheritance. And meanwhile, we're focused on all these things and the weight and the burden of that, then it's hard to pass through this needle into the heart. It's harder to do that. I think that's what Jesus was talking about, that we have to surrender those notions and allow ourselves to fall into our hearts, to fall into this heart space over and over again, to remember the true heritage of who we are. And this then signifies inner transformation as we return ourselves to the truth of us, transcending our ego, transcending these things that the world of form dictates our truth, and rather recognizing that what really matters is what's in our heart and how we've accessed our heart, given our heart, shared our heart, lived from our heart, detaching from a belief that our identity and our worth is about what we have, what we've accomplished, rather turning to our spiritual identity and claiming the truth of who we are. Once we begin to do that, we begin to understand that we are always in co-creation, and we can take full responsibility and accountability for what appears in our life and what shows up, what good shows up, where the blockages are. We can claim it, we can own it, we can have it, we can say it, we can see it, and we can transform it. We are then in absolute partnership and co-creation with this divine presence, living out our true worth and taking total responsibility for owning our worth. Our divine heritage is not just a theological concept then, but it's a fundamental truth of our being. And like this beautiful poet, Melody Godford says, of all the things I own, my worth is my favorite possession. That's what we're talking about in this week one. Reclaiming our true worth that's transcendent of anything in the world of form. Passing through that needle's eye into the heart and remembering that at the core of us is a holy, sacred space that seeks to burst forth into our lives And upon allowing it, our good begins to just flow to us easily and effortlessly. I invite us into prayer together now to anchor ourselves in this truth, to begin to breathe and feel that centered place again. I invite our practitioner prayer partners to stand with us as we step into this prayer time, knowing that they stand with us literally and energetically. And at the end of our service, they'll be down front to pray with anyone who would like to come forward and receive the gift of prayer. And here now, we breathe into this very breath of life, this very moment, and allow our hearts to open wide within us to the joyous recognition of the divine presence. It exists in everything and everyone. Every being is filled with this divine presence. And we know this, we can sense this. We intuit this all the time, and yet, sometimes as we intuit this truth, we leave ourselves out. But not today. Today we choose to place full awareness of the truth of our inner worth in our awareness. And if it takes feeling our heart space and breathing into it, if it takes placing our hand on our heart, if it takes allowing ourselves to just speak a word or two of love to ourselves, we gladly do it. We imagine for a moment now a precious jewel at the core of our beingness that represents our inherent worth. It shines brightly and it's warm and it exudes warmth through our entire being and through our life. Yes, it might be covered in dust from past experiences or the harsh words of others, but it's always there, radiating our divine heritage. And each of us possesses this brilliance. We don't have to earn it at all. It's something that we are. And we see signs of it in our life as we reflect upon the many moments that we've shown kindness to other people, the challenges that we've overcome, lovingly supporting ourselves, the unique perspective we bring to the world. These are reflections of our intrinsic value and what we can give back to the world. The world needs our unique light. So we choose today to shine it, to say yes to it, to dust off that jewel and allow it to live itself and shine itself through us brilliantly and joyously. And we go forth, claiming, owning, and living out our divine worth in this week ahead, in every relationship, in every conversation, in every decision, in everything we see about ourselves and our life and our world. We choose it, we own it, we are it. And I'm so grateful to see this as the truth of each one of us now as I release this prayer into the action of that universal law, knowing that it is done, I let it be, and so it is. Amen.